The Woman with the Apron and the Unseen Crown. It was supposed to be just another day. A rainy Thursday forgotten by most, remembered by none. The kind of day where nothing happened, nothing changed. But fate doesn't knock. It slips in quietly, sometimes through a side door, sometimes wearing an apron. And this time, fate came in the form of a tired woman with aching feet and a name no one ever cared to remember. Except one man did, and that changed everything. Chapter 1. The Invisible Queen. Her name was Marla Jennings. Age 56. Height, barely 5'2". Weight, worry and weariness. She moved through the lavish Rosemary Hotel restaurant like a wisp of wind, swift, silent, always one step ahead of need. Her gray apron, long faded from its original color, was tied with a precision that came from years of being overlooked. Not sloppy, not wrinkled, just quiet. Table 4 needs more lemon slices. Table 6 wants their water without ice. And Marla, the manager, paused, scanning her head to toe without looking her in the eye. Try not to look so tired, huh? You're the first face the guests see. Yes, sir, Marla replied, her voice gentle. Not because she feared him, but because she couldn't afford to lose another job. What the manager didn't know, what no one knew, was that Marla's shoes were soaked from the 2-mile walk she'd taken after missing the 6:10 a.m. bus. They didn't know that she hadn't had breakfast, that her stomach growled in rhythm with the clinks of champagne glasses, that her hands ached not from age, but from scrubbing the floors of her second job just hours before. They didn't know she had raised 3 children alone, buried a husband, and nursed her eldest daughter through breast cancer with nothing but overtime pay and a hope that refused to die. To them, she was the help. But to the woman at table 9, Marla was something else. Chapter 2. The Lonely Lady in Lavender. She sat alone, her eyes distant, the lavender silk scarf around her neck fluttering slightly from the ceiling fan above. She was beautiful, not in the flashy Instagram filter way, but in the quiet elegance that said, I've seen the world, and I've lost a piece of myself somewhere in it. Good morning, Marla said gently, pouring water into the crystal glass. Welcome to Rosemary. Would you like coffee, tea, or something to lift a heavy heart? The woman blinked, startled, then let out a soft laugh. You're not like the others. I try not to be, Marla replied, giving her a kind smile. Coffee, please. Black. No sugar. Marla nodded and turned, but not before noticing the woman wipe something from the corner of her eye. A tear, maybe. Or a memory. She didn't ask. She'd learned long ago that pain spoken to soon turns brittle. Chapter 3. The Billionaire in the corner booth. Across the restaurant, behind a towering vase of white orchids, Damien Ward watched. Tech magnate, billionaire investor, man of empires. But right now, he wasn't thinking about stocks or software. His piercing eyes weren't scanning emails or market reports. They were locked onto one thing. The waitress. Not because she was young. She wasn't. Not because she was fashionable. She wasn't. But because she had just done something most people in his world had forgotten how to do. She saw someone else's pain and showed up with kindness. No spotlight, no applause, just a smile, and a hot cup of black coffee. He leaned back in his booth, his hand resting on his chin. Who is she? He didn't know her name. Not yet, but he was about to change her life. She just didn't know it. Chapter 4. The Collision of Two Worlds. Marla returned with coffee and a slice of warm brioche. Technically reserved for VIPs, but she brought it anyway. Just in case life hasn't been sweet to you lately, she said, placing the plate gently on the table. The woman smiled, really smiled, for the first time since she arrived. Thank you, she whispered. I needed that. From behind the orchids, Damien leaned forward, eyes narrowing. That voice. He knew it. His wife. Clarissa Ward. They had been married 22 years. and in the last 5, he'd stopped seeing her, stopped asking how she was doing, stopped noticing the sadness behind her perfect posture and pearls. And yet here she was, smiling, blooming like spring, because a tired waitress with soaked shoes offered her brioche and humanity. He watched in silence, stunned. The most powerful man in the room had just realized he wasn't the one who made his wife feel seen. Chapter 5. The drop that shattered silence. It happened in a flash. Marla, reaching to refill Clarissa's water, bumped the table edge. The crystal glass tipped, spinning midair, and spilled across Clarissa's pale blue skirt. "Oh my lord, I'm so sorry." But before panic could rise, Marla was already there, dabbing with a fresh napkin, her eyes wide with apology. "I'll take care of it," she said, voice trembling for the first time. Clarissa looked down, then up. "It's all right," she said softly. "It's just water. And it's not the worst thing that's happened to me today." They laughed, just a little, just enough. From the booth, Damien stood, walked over, and for the first time in years, he looked both women in the eyes. His wife, and the waitress who made her smile. The table that changed everything. Chapter 1. The offer nobody saw coming. "Marla Jennings," Damien Ward said, reading her name from the little gold tag pinned just above her heart. His voice was deep, smooth, like aged mahogany, but carried the weight of command. Marla blinked. The billionaire. The man from the booth. The man whose wife she just spilled water on. "Yes, sir," she asked, unsure whether to apologize again or brace herself for the wrath of the wealthy. But Damien didn't scold her. He extended his hand instead. "I'd like to speak with you, after your shift." Marla didn't move. No one had ever asked to speak with her outside of clean table 3 or clock out early. Clarissa, still dabbing the damp fabric of her skirt, looked between them, a quiet smile curving her lips. She said nothing, but her eyes sparkled. Something had changed in her, something soft and alive. I don't understand," Marla said quietly. "Is this about the spill?" Damien shook his head. "It's not about the water. It's about the way you saw someone drowning, and reached out before they even called for help." And with that, he turned and walked out, leaving Marla standing there, apron soaked, hands trembling. The maitre d' stared at her. The manager raised an eyebrow, but no one said a word. Chapter 2. What do you wear to meet a billionaire? When Marla's shift ended, she didn't go to the back room to change. She didn't have another outfit anyway. She freshened up in the mirror of the guest bathroom, wiping down her shoes, fixing her curls as best she could, and reapplying the same faded lipstick she had worn to her daughter's graduation years ago. Damien's driver was waiting outside in a sleek black car. Marla climbed in like someone entering another world. And in many ways, she was. The car drove her across town, not to a mansion, but to a quiet rooftop cafe atop a luxury high-rise. The city sprawled beneath it, golden and endless. And there, seated at a table set for 2, was Damien Ward. No assistants, no press, just him. Clarissa sat across from him, sipping tea. She smiled and stood as Marla approached. "Please, sit," Clarissa said, pulling out a chair. I'm not sure why I'm here," Marla admitted, still clutching her purse like a shield. "You're here," Damien said, "because I need to ask you a question." He leaned forward. "Do you believe in second chances?" Chapter 3. A quiet dream spoken aloud. Marla's throat tightened. She didn't speak right away. She stared out at the skyline. The sunset spilled light across the table, setting the white linen glowing with a golden hue. "I used to," she said, voice low, "before life taught me that some people only get one, and others get as many as they want." Damien nodded slowly. "What if I told you," he said, "that I wanted to invest in someone overlooked? Someone like you?" Marla's heart beat faster. "Sir, if this is about charity. This isn't charity, Clarissa cut in gently. It's a recognition. Damien opened a leather portfolio and slid it across the table. Inside were pages, documents, floor plans, mock-ups, projections, a business proposal. Marla blinked at the first page. Marla's Hearth, a French-inspired artisan bakery. Tears sprang to her eyes. How do you even know? You mentioned brioche, Clarissa said softly. With that much love in your voice, I guessed there was more. Damien continued, I had my people look into your background. Culinary school, top of your class, left to care for your family, never went back. But your name still comes up in a few old instructor reports. One of them wrote, Marla Jennings has a gift for flavors and a heart that belongs in a kitchen. Marla covered her mouth. She hadn't seen that paper in over 30 years. Chapter 4. A question with no easy answer. What exactly are you offering? Marla asked. Everything, Damien said plainly. Location, staff, startup capital. You'd own 60%, I'd hold 40%, with no interference on creative decisions. We'll train young women from underserved communities in your kitchen. Give second chances to others. Marla shook her head, overwhelmed. But why me? Damien leaned back, exhaling slowly. Because I spent a lifetime building things that don't last. Apps, platforms, tech. But yesterday I saw something real. A moment that mattered. You saw my wife when I didn't. And in 5 minutes, you brought her more peace than I have in 5 years. That's value. Clarissa reached over, placing a hand on Marla's. I spent too long in silent rooms, Marla. You reminded me what it felt like to be seen. And that's a gift, not a skill. Marla's fingers trembled. Her entire life, she had served others. Now someone wanted to serve her, and it scared her more than she expected. Chapter 5. The Voice in the Dark. That night, Marla lay awake in her tiny apartment. The lights from the city danced across her ceiling. She thought of her children, grown, scattered, surviving. She thought of her late husband's voice, once calling her Chef Marla when she baked cinnamon bread on Sundays. She thought of every table she'd ever cleared, every tip she never received, every time someone called her just the waitress. She got up, walked to the small cupboard above the fridge, pulled down a dusty envelope. Inside were old recipe cards, some smudged with butter and vanilla. At the back, a photograph, her in a white chef's coat, smiling. Before the world got heavy, Marla whispered, Is it finally my turn? Chapter 6. A Decision in Flour and Fire. The next morning, Marla walked into Damien Ward's office. Her head was high, her shoulders back. She wore the same uniform, but this time, she wasn't invisible. I'll do it, she said. Damien stood. Clarissa smiled. But I have conditions. Damien raised an eyebrow. I'm listening. First, she said, I want 10% of the bakery's net profits to fund emergency relief for single mothers in the service industry. Second, I want the training program named after my mother, Clara's Chance. Third, I bake the opening day batch myself. No shortcuts. Damien grinned. Clarissa clapped once, delighted. Deal, he said. Chef Marla. She smiled, eyes glistening. Let's bake something the world won't forget. When the world finally sees you. Chapter 1. Grand Opening. Quiet Power. The morning sun poured golden light across the sidewalks of the Highland District, and the streets buzzed with a gentle hum. Children skipped toward the newly painted community center. Locals walked slower than usual, their heads turning toward the fresh scent of bread. Marla's hearth stood on the corner like a memory finally made real. No flashy banners, no giant ribbon, just a small wooden sign hanging above the door carved with 2 words, Baked with Dignity. Inside, the bakery glowed. Counters gleamed. Hand-stitched curtains framed the wide windows. Every table bore a small vase with fresh wildflowers. And in the open kitchen, Marla stood, flour dusted across her apron and face, her hands moving with confident rhythm. Brioche, croissants, honey-dipped scones, each batch born from decades of silence, from tears shed into mixing bowls, from a dream buried and finally unearthed. "You nervous?" Clarissa asked from the side, tying her own apron. She had insisted on being part of the first day. Marla looked up, eyes warm. "I'm not nervous," she said softly. "I'm grateful and ready." The doors unlocked at 7:00 a.m. sharp. By 7:05, the line was around the block. Chapter 2. The ones who never had a table. They came in waves. The construction worker who used to pass Marla on the bus. The grocery clerk who lost her son but remembered Marla's comforting smile in aisle 4. The retired teacher who once taught Marla's daughter and never knew she worked 3 jobs to afford her schoolbooks. Now they came, not to be served by her, but to sit at her table. To say thank you. To say I see you. Among the crowd, Marla spotted a face that made her breath catch. Mrs. Tinsley, her old culinary school teacher. Gray-haired now, leaning on a cane, but her presence as sharp as ever. "I always told them you'd go far," she said with a proud grin. "But I never imagined this." Marla reached for her hand and squeezed it gently. "Neither did I," she said, "but maybe the long way around was the right way." Chapter 3. The review that shook the city. Later that week, the bakery was featured on the front page of the city's lifestyle section. From Waitress to Queen of Hearth, how one woman's kindness built the warmest bakery in town. The piece didn't just talk about the food, it talked about the mission. Clara's chance, local apprenticeships, the medical relief fund for single moms, jobs given to people once deemed unemployable. It ended with a quote from Clarissa Ward. "Marla reminded me that dignity is not something you earn, it's something you honor in others. And when you do, they rise." She rose. And now, she lifts all of us. The article went viral. Requests flooded in from TV stations, podcasts, even Food Networks. But Marla turned most of them down. "I'm not baking for fame," she told Clarissa. "I'm baking for the girl in me who thought no one saw her." Chapter 4. When the past walks in. One Thursday afternoon, the bell above the bakery door rang, and in walked a tall young man, mid-20s, suit a little too polished for the neighborhood. Marla looked up from behind the counter. "Can I help you, sweetheart?" The man hesitated, then stepped forward. "Are you Marla Jennings?" "Yes." He reached into his briefcase and pulled out a photograph. Marla gasped. It was her husband, James, from 30 years ago, in uniform, smiling. "My name is Caleb," the man said. "I think I'm your husband's son." Marla stared at him, eyes wide, heart racing. "My husband died before our youngest even turned 2, she whispered. "He never told me." "I was born after he deployed again," Caleb said gently. "He never came back. My mother never told me about him, until recently. When I saw your story online, I recognized his face in the photo over your counter." Tears filled Marla's eyes. The past wasn't haunting her. It was coming home. She walked around the counter and hugged Caleb tight. "I think you just found a second family," she whispered. Chapter 5. The legacy grows. In the months that followed, Marla's hearth expanded, not in size, but in soul. She hired 2 more apprentices, opened a scholarship in her late husband's name for military children, created a pay-it-forward wall where patrons could buy meals in advance for those in need. Dozens of tags now hung like blessings in waiting. Damien visited rarely but always quietly, never seeking credit. He told Clarissa the same thing each time. This was never about returns. This was about redemption. Clarissa smiled. She had become the bakery's unofficial consultant, helping with branding, logistics, and even rolling dough on busy mornings. The laughter between her and Marla was warm and unforced. 2 women who had once felt unseen, now choosing to uplift each other. And every week, without fail, Mr. Grayson, Marla's elderly neighbor, sat at the corner table and ordered his cinnamon roll. "Doctor says I should stop," he'd grumble. "But I say joy's a better medicine." Marla always replied the same way. "Then let's make sure you get your prescription, sugar." Chapter 6. Scene. Finally seen. One evening, after the bakery closed, Marla stood alone at the back counter. The sun had dipped low, painting everything in deep gold. The scent of vanilla and rising dough lingered in the air. She looked around, at the photos on the wall, the jars of flour, the battered rolling pin she'd kept from her first apartment, the cash register humming with life, the chalkboard filled with thank you notes. And then she walked to the front window. Outside, the streetlights flickered on. Families strolled past. Laughter echoed from the playground across the street. And for the first time in her life, she didn't feel small. She didn't feel tired or invisible, or like she had to earn her place in the world with every smile or bowed head. She simply belonged. She was no longer just the waitress. She was the woman who built something, the woman who lifted others, the woman who had always been enough. Finally, the world saw it too. Epilogue. For those still waiting. This isn't just a story about a bakery, or a billionaire, or a spilled glass of water. This is a story about how one small act of kindness, one unnoticed moment, can echo beyond anything we imagine. Marla Jennings was never looking for a savior. She simply wanted to be seen. And when she was, she became more than she ever dreamed. If you're out there, still waiting to be noticed, still holding on to a dream too long deferred, still showing kindness even when no one claps, this story is for you. Because maybe, just maybe, your moment is closer than you think. And when it comes, may the world finally see the crown you've been wearing all along.